Hello everybody, so today I'm going to start a new series which I'm going to call The Secret Prehistory of the World. Or maybe I'll just say Secret Prehistory. And I'm going to start it off because we know that we've only documented about 6,000 years, maybe 8,000 of human existence. And in fact, we've only reasonably accurately documented about 2,000 years, and in fact really only about 500 years, and in fact even what we're saying to this day is a lot of lies. If you look at the news today, well, you look about the current war that's going on in Ukraine, you have any amount of knowledge of things going on, you'd know that we're lying like crazy. Like crazy. I mean, we don't lie about matter-of-fact things, but about anything of any importance we lie like crazy, and wars are pretty much the most important things to lie about. So we always lie about wars. This is not an unusual war to be lying about, but we lie like crazy. So if we can't even trust our current things, why are we trusting history? Yeah, I mean, I know, all respect to historians who go back and try to weed out what's likely to be true and what's not likely to be true. Sometimes they disagree a bit and they get together and work it all out. Do their best with today's political biases guiding them. And yeah, so even what we have as our established history, even from the last period, is probably still not completely accurate. We still haven't, for example, we haven't figured out why Rome, or the Roman Empire, pretty much copied the Greek Empire for a lot of their beliefs. Why'd they do that? What's the truth and what's false about that? Because the Roman Empire took credit for all of the stuff, certainly the Greek Empire and probably a few other empires as well. We know quite a lot of the Egyptian history was sort of co-opted and stolen by the Romans. And we know that they burned the Library of Alexandria, which was a Greek library in Egypt, which was controlled by Greece at the time, that pretty much hid a lot of stuff that would have proven them to be not what they said they were. And we know that pretty much all powerful groups have done this over time. And it's been really difficult for people who were not the most powerful to keep any historical bits from being destroyed or being stolen or being perverted to appease whoever was the most powerful group. So the most powerful group looks better than they really are, and who is not the most powerful looks worse than they really are. And if you are the most powerful but then you become less powerful later on, all of your achievements are potentially open to being destroyed, stolen and co-opted by whoever takes over your area. Life's pretty fragile. Truth is even more fragile. So people saying, well, I mean, this is the current historical view. Okay, life began, humans evolved, nothing really happened. Then about 6,000 years ago, society just sort of spontaneously erupted in 8 or 10 different places, or however many they were, and this is where we start. Really? Is that what we're meant to believe? That we just did nothing for what is at least 200,000 years? You say modern day humans, 200,000 years, but if you say the first time that the pre-human ancestor split from the apes, you're talking about at least 2.3 million, probably 8 to 10 million years ago. That means that we get from 8 to 10 million down to 6 or 8,000. That's 1,000th that we're saying that's our starting point. So we're missing out on 999 out of 1,000, or 99.9%. We're just completely ignoring. It didn't exist because we don't have reliable documentation of it. So, and we can even go further than that. And we can say, well, what about the history of the universe and how that started? It all started with a Big Bang, did it really? I mean, that's what we say, it's always expanding. But then if it's always expanding, then it's relative to each other and it's actually shrinking with relation to something else, and therefore it's always existed. So the Big Bang is a theory that doesn't make any sense. It's not only that it's not really figured out, it's actually impossible to be true. I mean, based on the simple principle you can't make something out of nothing, and you can't turn something into nothing. Just not possible. Can't make things out of thin air. So they're saying, well, it expanded with respect to something, but then if it's expanding, it actually wouldn't be expanding in respect to everything. It's just the same size. So in fact, it couldn't have had a Big Bang. All we've actually had is things changing shape, and matter being redistributed, and energy being redistributed, and stuff like that. In fact, everybody on Earth and everybody anywhere else in the universe are immortal beings in a physical sense. Now, we don't necessarily know that we're immortal beings as far as a metaphysical or intelligent sense, but probably we are. So when we die, well, that'll be the end of this consciousness, but then it would probably float away and go into some other consciousness. But we just don't like to say that, because I guess the idea that we're all immortal beings is somehow offensive. It's something that people don't like to think. They say, no, the only immortal beings are gods, or God, or angels perhaps, not just regular people. Certainly not every person on Earth, let alone every animal on Earth as well, and every plant, and every living thing. And in fact, even the things that are not living are still immortal beings. Goodness, that's a bit of a problem. We don't want to say that, and yet that's the reality. So as for our Earth though, the Earth is not, I mean, there was a time when there was no Earth, when it was whatever it was before, when it was a firing, we know it was on fire. For billions of years it was on fire, and we know that. And we know that because we study blah 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 blah. We know there was a period, perhaps it wasn't billions of years, but certainly millions of years, it was on fire. And what happened to create the Earth? Which we know, this has been established, it's fact, is that something hit the Earth. What hit the Earth? Well, there's pretty much two choices. It was either a planet or a moon, or some, what we call a celestial object. So I think the best, like the most likely one, is that there was a planet between Earth and Mars, and on the orbit, and it just sort of swayed away from its orbit, hit Earth, got destroyed, and part of that destruction, like about half of it, ended up becoming Earth. A bit of Earth merged with it and became the moon, and then the rest of it became this asteroid belt, because there's this massive asteroid belt between Earth and Mars. Isn't that, people don't seem to be aware of it, but there is one. And this massive asteroid belt then had a magnetic attraction to both the Earth and the moon, and it started pelting the Earth with all of these asteroids, with all these meteors, and that then created an atmosphere on Earth. It made us tidal locked with the moon and created an environment in which life could flourish. That's what created life on Earth. Now, we know that. It's still a theory. It's called the giant impact hypothesis, but outside of religious texts, it's pretty much what we know to be true. Now, the only dispute is whether it was, well, what was a planet or a moon, or something that wasn't either a planet or a moon. I mean, celestial object. It was something. It was a rock, and we don't know where it was for sure. What most likely it was where the asteroid belt currently is, because the asteroid belt does look like a destroyed planet, but it may well have been an outside moon of Jupiter that sort of fell off its axis and hit the Earth. And we don't know for sure what it was, or we don't know how it hit the Earth. Was it just a random event, or? And here's your concept of God coming in, because maybe God pushed it to create life on Earth, and that's how God created life on Earth. There you go. Maybe even God created Earth by putting it together somehow out of the previous elements. This does not mean that Earth was created from nothing, but rather that, you know, God or some random event smashed together all these different little rocks and created Earth. So none of this suggests that God isn't real. In fact, science and religion are not incompatible at all. It just says that perhaps a literal translation of certain things might be a bit wrong. I mean, people write the Bible and other religious texts, maybe they interpret it badly. You know, it's not saying they're lying, it's It's just saying that perhaps they can't conceive of that long ago, or of certain things happening. But, so out of that, we know that actually life, well, this is a funny thing. We believe currently that life was created by viruses. What? You know, like the big pandemic we had? That was created by a virus, also known as a disease. It could somehow be both. Viruses cannot be killed. They are undead things. They're neither alive or not alive. They're immortal beings, or things. And not only that, but they change our DNA. Once you have a virus, your DNA is changed permanently. Not only is it changed permanently, maybe in some tiny way, but if you have children, or you progenate children, so man giving you sperm, that sperm will have its DNA changed as well from the virus that you've had. There you go. And that's not just for big viruses like the one we had a couple of years ago, but even little viruses. Every time you catch a cold, it's changing your DNA. Every time you get anything, it is changing your DNA. Now, here's a little theory. Viruses could literally be gods. I know we're thinking, oh, there's this huge thing out in the cosmos or whatever. What if viruses are tiny microscopic things? We don't really understand what viruses are. So what if, you know, there's a big version of the virus out there that's squished together the planets, and then once we're there, the little viruses are going, well, let's change it. Viruses have the potential to create life, to give things life. I mean, they can't create something out of nothing, but they can give life to things by infesting non-living things and making them alive. So if God is alive and is on this earth, it would be a virus. That's a little interesting tidbit for you. That of course doesn't mean that God is good or evil. We generally think of viruses as quite evil. That's our general perception, and that could well be true. Could be that viruses are evil beings, but they're still gods. Doesn't mean we should worship them. Perhaps we should be opposed to them, but we can't actually defeat them, because you can't defeat a virus. Best you can have is to have a good immune system that rejects it. So it's almost like the immune system is the good version of God. So if you like, if you want to think of it this way, viruses are kind of evil, immune systems are good, and we have an immune system as a good God stopping the evil virus. Yeah. And that's actually quite factual. I know it sounds quite ridiculous, but it is quite factual. So, now of course there wouldn't have been any of that when Earth had that collision before Earth became Earth. They call it proto-Earth, or prehistoric Earth, or pre-Earth Earth. But so a bit of that the original Earth is in the moon. It's all smushed together. It's no longer on fire. Earth's no longer on fire either, obviously. And the moon's quite cold now, but there's still that magnetic field, and that magnetic field creates the waters, the oceans. If we didn't have a moon there with that magnetic attraction which came from that collision, all the water on Earth would float away. So if somebody went and destroyed the moon, like just blew it up, all the water would disappear. And now you might think, oh well, that'd be a bit of a bummer. We wouldn't survive very long without water. How long do we survive? 3 days? Well, it would also include all the water in our bodies. So we're pretty much dying instantly as soon as that happens. So somebody destroys the moon, I'm not sure how many seconds we'd have, maybe 5 seconds, 8 seconds. People on Earth are going to die. So the Earth is essential. Sorry, the moon is essential for all life on Earth. Unless there's some life that doesn't rely on water. I don't believe there is. Because our blood is mostly water. That's, you know, there's just water in everything. It's just, you know, we would all just die. Just instantly. And that's something that a lot of people don't really realise. So that collision is essential for life on this planet. And it's not, I know we talk about it being a theory, and I've just talked about how the The Big Bang Theory is a load of nonsense, and I can also go further and say black hole theory is nonsense too. They're just impossible theories. But the giant impact hypothesis is not only sensible, but I mean some version of it is required. Like, I mean, maybe there's some other explanation, but how are you going to explain that tidal lock and all the magnetic fields and all that? Yeah, we probably don't feel the magnets attracting us to the moon, or attracting the asteroid belt to Earth and to the moon, but it's there, and that causes the water to stay on Earth. It's called tidal lock. So I know, and I mean, we need the sun as well. We need the sun because it gives us energy. Without the sun, and I mean, if it's too close, too far, it's either too much energy or too little. And I mean, potentially you could still have life if it's a bit further away or a bit closer, but it'd be different kinds of life. But yeah, without the moon, you wouldn't have water. So that essentially means that, I mean, all planets have moons, but do they have the same kind of magnetic moons that Earth does? I don't think so. Did they have moons that were the result of collisions that also created the environment for life? Probably not. And I know we talk about the Goldilocks zone, and that being where life can be possible, but it also, it's required for there to be that magnetic field in order for the water to stay on the planet. So it actually becomes even less likely. And I mean, if this planet is the only planet in the entire universe, or everything that has life, it's really hard to get away from that being a random event. If there's that much emptiness, it's really hard to get away to think that that's a random event. I mean, there has to have been some reason to have it. I mean, maybe it's a random event, but then we're all eternal beings and all this. Maybe we created Earth. You know, some version of us, our consciousness, our beings. Perhaps we were all together and just said, look, we're sick of being bodiless beings out in the cosmos. Let's create a place for us to live, and we pushed that together. I think that's quite plausible. Or maybe viruses, which maybe is the central intelligence, did that. And then they're still there. And then we're on Earth, and then viruses are kind of keeping an eye on us. Or maybe then viruses are the antithesis of life. They're the anti-life. Maybe they're the devil, if you like. Well, we certainly do have a big feeling that viruses are evil. And I certainly don't want to get into virus worship. But that would then mean that the opposite of the virus is the immune system. And therefore our immune system is essentially, that's God, and God lives within all of us. Now, I'm not doing this from a theological point of view. I'm doing that from a philosophical point of view. God has to be real. There's no way that God could not be real. But what God is, our immune system, which we all have immune systems, that could be God. Now, some people, unfortunately, their immune system doesn't work very well, or they don't have a very good one, and that's unfortunate. I'm not trying to say those people are evil or bad or anything like that. I don't know what I'm saying really, but you know, and I mean, I don't know if that is what God is or what it isn't, but it would stand to reason that immune systems certainly act in a godlike way. And I mean, we can't communicate directly with our immune system, but maybe because we don't know how to talk to God, maybe that's what God is. God is immune systems. Perhaps in all animals, all plants, and viruses are the devil. And there is this eternal fight where viruses will change us into some other creature eventually. Perhaps not in one go, no, certainly not in one go, but you know, and maybe that's what we're doing. When we create vaccines and stuff like that, perhaps we're creating an assistant to God. You know, when we cure viruses, cure diseases, perhaps that's what we're doing. We're helping them out. And anyone who creates viruses is perhaps doing the devil's work. But maybe we got it the wrong way around. Maybe viruses are good. No, I don't think so. It's really hard to imagine viruses being the good gods. They're probably more likely the evil gods. Yeah, so it's an interesting concept, but certainly there's a lot of facts there. It's not very much theory. I am speculating a little bit about a few little things, but this sounds a lot more far-fetched than it is. It's actually, that's pretty much what we know to be true. So that's the first part of my new series, I guess you'd call it. And I'm going to be going over other things about how life began. And I'm of course going to be focusing on humans. I'm a human, people. We are and Earth. I'm going to focus on Earth. I've already said Earth. And probably even focus on my country, even me personally. But yeah, it's just my first period. I'm going to be looking at things that we don't really accept as fact, that are too long ago, too uncertain. And I'm going to look at what probably it was. Anyway, that's it from me. Bye bye now.